Hello and welcome to the Green Collar Careers Podcast. I'm your host, Jose Almanzar, a practicing environmental attorney and former environmental scientist. This podcast is all about exploring careers in sustainability in the environmental field, what they look like, how to get started, and how to grow into them. Each episode, I sit down with professionals who have built meaningful careers in this space to hear their stories, how they got started, the challenges they faced, and the advice I have for anyone looking to break in or level up. Whether you're a student, a career changer, or just passionate about making a difference, these conversations will have something valuable for you. Thank you so much for spending time with us. Let's dive right in. Hello and welcome to the podcast. I'm Jose Almanzar, your host, and I'm here with Marissa Blackshire of Bloom Energy. Hey Marissa, how are you?
I'm good. How about you? Thanks for having me.
I'm doing all right. Marissa and I were speaking before we went live, and I've had a really interesting Friday with a sick kid at home, and Marissa's having her own interesting Fridays with couches being delivered and TVs being installed. So we're both having, an interesting Friday.
Friday is Friday.
Yeah, I'm okay. I'm okay with that. I'd rather this happen on a Friday. Yeah, better than on a Monday, to be honest with you. How is everything with you? Where do you live, by the way?
I live in Oakland, California. Actually,
Oakland.
technically, I just moved. I live in Piedmont, which is an incorporated area in the middle of Oakland.
Okay, and what part of did you grow up out there?
No, I grew up in Southern California, Orange County, Laguna Beach, and Spokane, Washington. So really random locations.
For a lot of people that would be random, but Spokane is not. I did a short stint in EPA Region 10 when I was in undergrad.
Oh, okay.
And we worked as part of their tribe. I was part of their tribal program. Yeah. So I got a really good opportunity to explore Spokane and go into some of the tribal, really tribal country out there. Have you been to
Coeur d'Alene? Is that like
Yep.
You were in North Idaho? Yeah. So I grew up in Spokane, but we had a lake place on Hayden Lake, which is out near Coeur d'Alene in North Idaho. That's where a lot of people spend their weekends if they live in Spokane. So yes, I've definitely been out there.
How many years, in terms of your childhood before you made your way north? Like how many, can you what that was like?
We moved from Southern California, from Orange County to Spokane, I guess when I was about a fifth grader. Yeah. And then my family lived there until I was 18 and graduated from high school. And then they moved back to South Orange County. So I've spent, my family and I spent the majority of my life in either Orange County, Los Angeles area, but those really formative kid years were in Spokane. So I have a tendency to say I'm from Spokane.
I don't blame you. And that's really interesting. So was that time of your life, were you just outdoors all the time?
Spent a lot of time outdoors. Like I think about the way I played when I was a kid and the way my kids played who were raised in Los Angeles city proper. And it's totally different. Like we had to go out of our way to teach our kids to ride a bike because no one rode a bike. And I lived in a neighborhood in Los Angeles, it just was way different. In Spokane, we would go out at 8:00 in the morning, ride our bikes all over the neighborhood, knock on doors. Can you play? There were forests in the middle of our neighborhood. We'd build forts. We'd be in trees all day, and then we'd come home when it was dark.
That's do you attribute that to your interest in kind of environmental? I don't call it environmental issues because as a kid you're not thinking about, but just your inclination to lean towards kind of the environment and sustainability.
You know what? I'm not going to lie and say that I had this lifelong bent toward the environment and sustainability. I think my entire life I wanted to be a lawyer. I thought probably up through the first day of criminal law that I thought I wanted to be a criminal lawyer. I ended up taking some really great environmental and land use courses in law school. And I was like, this is awesome. I really like this. But to be honest with you, even as a middle-class kid, I consider myself a pretty middle-class kid. I had no familiarity with environmental work or that it was a career. It's not the stuff you see on TV. And so even when I took those courses and loved those courses, I was like, there's a career in this? I can do this. And ultimately I ended up getting my first job at a law firm working in their land use and environmental department. And so, I realized really quickly there was a job in it. And I realized really quickly what that was. And if I'm being honest, I think that I very quickly made the connection between the work and some of the things I've always been the most passionate about in my life, like justice, civil rights, um, all of these things that are really important to, the people in my family. And I realized that there was a lot of connection between those two things and a lot of great things that could be done via my environmental and land use work, if that makes sense.
Do you remember, when you did when you did land use work, was it project specific, or, excuse me, project development specific, or litigation?
Yeah, so I think a lot of my early large scale industrial infrastructure work, working with clients allowed me to understand how much ability that I had in this space to talk to them about win-wins, to talk to them about relationship building, and also to think really intentionally and quantitatively, both from an environmental and economic impact standpoint, what these projects were going to do.
Hmm.
Um, there are a lot of young people, particularly Black and Brown young people, that think they can only make an impact or they're only making a difference if they go work for an NGO or they go work for the government. And I would say that the way that I came to this work and my experience doing this work has taught me that we need really good, diverse people on all sides of these issues, and that there is so much opportunity sometimes to make a bigger impact than the no people by getting corporate clients to understand what a win-win is, to understand the perspectives of other people, to understand how to build relationships, and really do projects that are good for everybody.
Yeah, and that's a great point, because I think some of that is lost in, I don't want to call it on the young people, but there seems to be this kind of like binary existence with, environmental issues, that things are either good or bad, and that there's winners and losers, and it doesn't have to be like that on both sides. Sometimes the government overreaches, sometimes the developer is trying to do the right thing, and they're getting hammered because, for whatever reason. So there's a lot of gray area, and I like what you mentioned, which is that um, you kind of have to just explore what's out there, and not necessarily feel that you need to be pigeonholed into what you think is out there. Um, Getting into your background, so where'd you end up going to undergrad, if you don't mind me asking?
I went to undergrad at 2 years at Washington State University and 2 years at UC Santa Barbara. So kind of like my upbringing. I played volleyball in college, and so went to Washington State, ended up needing to change, and ended up transferring down to Southern California.
Yeah, and were you like, I mean, you were a D1 athlete. Do you still play volleyball, or no?
So I retired when I was about 35. I played on a serious indoor women's team for like the first time in years. For a while, as an adult, I would only play indoor co-ed because I thought the girls were too serious. I was like, men's net, fun, co-ed, have beers afterward. And somehow I got roped into playing on like a serious women's team when I was like 35. We went to adult nationals, we won, and I was like, I'm hanging them up. It's over. I never need to play again.
Good for you that you had the discipline to do that. One of the problems that I've run into, I'm 42 this year, and one of the things that I'm running into is knowing when to stop playing, because I played sports. I didn't play D1 sports, but sports has always been a part of my life, and I've noticed in the last few years, like, I'll play pickup games or even in leagues, and that, like, injury will not heal as quickly. So I think you retired at the right time.
Yes, don't get me wrong. I'm passionate about working out. It is actually like so important to my mental health, my weekly routine. I
Yeah.
do all sorts of stuff, but just like you said, when you're playing the actual sports, it's just different, right? Like when you're jumping and all of
Well,
that.
your brain thinks that you're still like
Yep.
18, but the body knows that it's not.
Yep. Yep. That's exactly right.
And in college, what kind of what was your major? What kind of courses did you
My
do?
My major was political science. I was of the view that I just needed to do something that really interested me and allowed me to write a lot. So I was a poli-sci major, a history minor. That was the stuff that just got me going in life, and so that I thought was the easiest path to get into law school for me.
Was that around the time that you going into college, you knew that you wanted to go to law school, or was it something that evolved while you were in college? Do you remember?
Oh, I am like one of those people that said I was going to be a lawyer when I was 5.
Love it.
I'm not gonna lie, a lot of it was probably, I'm loud, I like to argue. The people around me were like, "This is what you need to do," right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so I was kind of like conditioned, but I can't remember a time when I didn't say I wanted to be a lawyer.
All right. So you went to law school, kind of this idea that you wanted to be a lawyer, and certainly you took courses and your degree, kind of to position yourself to succeed in law school. And then when you went to law school right after undergrad.
I went to law school right after undergrad.
Hmm.
I had a really small child.
Mm,
Like I said, I came in on day one. I thought I wanted to be a criminal lawyer because that's what I'd seen. That's what's on TV.
yeah,
I went to the first day of criminal law, and it was Socratic method, a case about a young girl that was raped and murdered by her stepfather,
yeah,
and he got off on a technicality.
yeah,
And I was like, huh, do I want to be in charge of a case like this? Do I want to look at these pictures? Do I want to feel responsible if I screw up and this person doesn't go to jail? This does not sound like the life for me. And
yeah,
so from that day forward, it was sort of like, okay, I've got to use this law school experience to try and understand as many different pathways as possible under the law and kind of really just get a job to support myself and my young daughter, right?
yeah,
And so I was really open. That's something that has been a staple in my life and career is I may have an objective, but I'm really open to how I meet that objective. I'm not like wedded to a certain outcome. I need to be this kind of lawyer. I need to get a job at this law firm. Like, no, I need to get a job and I need to be open to what that looks like.
Well, that's a really good approach, I think, because it's realistic. It's real life. You have an idea of where you want to be, but from the moment that when you think about it to when you get there, life doesn't always work out so neatly. And you and I, we met through the SEER Bridge program. I moderated a panel that Marissa was gracious enough to speak on, and we were speaking with young mentees and giving them advice about what how to pivot and how to navigate yourself in this space when you're trying to break in, and it's not always easy. Sometimes you need to be realistic, and sometimes employers aren't ready to bring you on. Maybe you don't have the right experience. In your Have you found the bridge program? And I should mention this through the American Bar Association, the section of energy and environmental resources. And how have you found that mentorship program?
Yeah, so I have been active in SEER since about 2013. I went to a conference, I got an award, someone asked me to be on a planning committee, and it kind of just took off from there.
Hmm.
So I've done a whole bunch of things in SEER, but the things that I most often gravitate to are the things where I get the opportunity to interface with young lawyers, law students, particularly young lawyers and law students of color, first generation, because I really think it's a great opportunity to sort of tell your story, tell your path, let them know that, like, there are a lot of different ways to get where you want to get. There's a lot of different careers. Like I said, even me coming up, I had no idea that there was a career in environmental and land use law. These guys are way ahead of me in as much as they already know they want to be in that space, right? And so I really, really love any opportunity to, interface with people, even if it's, one touch. Because I think it can be really, really helpful, particularly to people that don't have a lot of resources. My experience with SEER and SEER Bridge has always been outstanding. I've met so many great young people, so many great law students. I've learned so much from them, really. I always say that about mentorship. Um, a lot of people think they're getting into it for the other person. In my life, it's always benefited me much more, right? Or has allowed me to think about things differently or more intentionally. So it's been a fabulous experience for me.
Did you have a mentor when you were, kind of do you have a mentor, or throughout your career have you had a mentor?
Yeah, so, when I was coming up and when I was going to law school, my dad's best friend actually went to my law school. She was the first can't remember. She's half black, half Japanese. She was either the first black woman or the first Japanese woman to be president of the California bar. She was pretty, successful. And so she kind of helped me navigate my way to law school, make decisions about where I wanted to go and why, how to leverage resources, help connect me with people. She was a criminal lawyer. So once I got on a different path, she was no longer the person. Um, I went to work at my first law firm. It was a mid-sized law firm. And fortunately enough, I think in sort of a mid-sized space, you get to go as far and as fast as sort of your performance dictates. You might be a first year, but if you're good, you might get to do more than you might at a big law firm. My managing partner at that firm, Marco Stoich, he really, really was a good sort of informal mentor for me. I don't even know if he knows how important he was to my career, but like he really quickly took me under his wing. Another partner there, Penny Alexander Kelly, she did the same thing. And then after I was there for 2 years, I went to Big Law and worked with two of the most outstanding female partners in an LA firm. And really, those two women, Sharon Rubalcava and Jocelyn Thompson, they're people that I have continued throughout my career. They're both retired now. I use them as references. I try to see them, but they were really just strong, strong examples about how to operate in this space. And I think you could say that women of that generation, they had to go through so many different things that I haven't had to go through, even though I've gone through things as well. And so them being able to get to the level of success that they got to, just like a really, really strong example of what it takes to be a good environmental and land use lawyer.
Was and it sounds like were they formal mentors? Like, did that law firm have a
I
mentorship
mean, I
program?
would say those guys, they were my bosses, but they were bosses that had a life experience that was so similar to mine that there was a mentorship that maybe wouldn't have been there if they were just some partner that I was working for, if that makes sense. Um, I'm trying to think of like really strong formal mentorship connections that I've had. For me, it's just not those kind of experiences have never been very organic for me. And sometimes I've been paired with people that were just really bad for me. And so I went through the process. I had a dialogue with them. I think I extracted from that dialogue like the best that I could get out of it, but organically it was just not a thing that was going to continue.
I have to tell you, I've been at a few law firms, and they've had mentorship programs, and I hate to say this, it's well intentioned,
Yeah.
but I feel like the people that are doing it, that are the mentors, it ends up feeling forced after a while.
Mhm.
And I really like the organic mentor mentee relate, and it doesn't have to be labeled as such.
Yep.
And so I like you, I find a lot of value both for the mentee, but also for myself in speaking with both, young people, but also people from diverse backgrounds that are trying to make their way into the space, either as attorneys or otherwise. And I think the people that reach out to me genuinely on LinkedIn or via email, and we just have like a real discussion, and they just want to learn about what it's like to be, an environmental attorney, or my history as an environmental scientist. We sometimes go maybe a year or two without speaking, but the fact that they continuously reach out to me, I know that um, they're getting something out of speaking to me. And I encourage everyone that might be listening to this, that if you don't need to have a formal mentor for you to regard someone as someone that is a mentor to you. And you don't need to tell them, oh, you're not going to be my mentor. Like it could just be somebody that you touch base with every few months and say, hey, how are you? Let me just give you some updates. I could use some advice. You have 10 minutes for me. It doesn't have to be this whole big to do.
They don't even have to know that you're
They don't.
thinking of them as a mentor.
They don't. Your own
Yeah.
personal board of advisors.
I always tell young people when I'm in rooms, when I'm speaking on things like this, like reach out to me on LinkedIn, via email, whatever. I've never said no to someone that's asked. Some relationships evolve from that conversation. Some relationships are only one conversation. Sometimes I take them to lunch. Sometimes I take them to coffee. At least they got a free meal out of the deal. I have never said no to someone that wanted to chat. And I do have some like, historic mentor or mentee relationships where I had a mentee that was, I got her when she was graduating from high school. And this was in the LA area. And she's now a tenured professor at Berkeley, or she will be in June. So that's how long we've, maintained our relationship. And it's fabulous.
So
So.
let me ask you, how would you go about, let's say that you were a recent graduate or somebody that maybe is in law school, and you have the concept of a mentor hasn't even crossed your mind, but now you're listening to this podcast and you're like, shoot, maybe I could use some mentors. Like, what are some things that you would do if you were, hitting the Wayback Machine, and you could, how would you go about finding a mentor for yourself?
So, first of all, I think if you know what you want to do, people that are listening to this podcast, they probably want to be an environmental lawyer. I would look into becoming a member of the ABA section of Environment, Energy, and Resources, becoming a member of your local environmental bar association, your state environmental bar association. For the most part, membership for students is free or extremely reduced. And it gives you access to networking opportunities and all sorts of places where you might just meet some of these people that you'd like to be your mentors. I'd start thinking about the places where you think you want to work and the issues that you want to work on. And I'd start doing some Google searches and figuring out who are some of the top names, who are some of the names that look like me or are doing the kind of work I want to do. And then maybe I'd send some LinkedIn messages. I might even send some emails based on those Google searches. And like I said, I mean, most of them are probably going to be like me, and they don't typically turn down, outreach from law students and young lawyers if it's done in the right fashion.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think those are some really concrete things that you can do if you're looking for people to talk to about a career in this space.
Yeah. And then once you have their attention, it's very important that, and then this has happened with me, to actually follow through.
Yep.
So if you reach out to me and I respond to you, because this has happened, and I'm like, yeah, I'm available to speak on this day, and then I don't hear from you for like 3 months, I'm not going to say I'm not going to continue to, engaging with you, but my interest has now like gone elsewhere. Like once you have someone's attention, you kind of have to like strike while the iron is a little hot.
That is absolutely right. Like if you want to engage, engage. Don't make them feel like, you sought them out.
Yeah.
Turn your camera on,
Yeah, we had a discussion a few weeks ago, Marissa, about etiquette.
Yep.
About etiquette and kind of things that people that are looking for mentors or looking for networking opportunities that they should be doing. What are like 2 or 3 things that you would advise, once you do reach out to somebody like yourself or me, and you have our attention, and we do engage with you and have a discussion with you, and maybe we put you in touch with somebody that might be at an organization or a firm that you want to potentially explore. What are some kind of just like some basic housekeeping things that people should consider?
Yeah, I mean, I think number one, follow up, say thank you, say please, be appreciative, be thankful. I mean, I'm not saying, kiss the ground these people walk on, but it's really easy to say, send a one line email saying, I really appreciate you. Thank you for the connection. Thank you for your time. And it goes a long way. The other thing I'd say is if you get connected through your conversation with me or with Jose to someone else, be polite with that connection. Don't go into the conversation with a specific ask unless that's been discussed before. Um, Go into the conversation organically, trying to understand who the person is and have them understand who you are, and see if there's anything organic that comes out of that. Again, follow up both with the person that you got connected with and with the person that connected you, to let you know that you spoke with their person, and you appreciated and had a nice lunch. I think it's just kind of basic stuff that sometimes gets lost in the mix in this day and age. And if you are part of the small percentage of people that act right and use proper etiquette, that's going to say a lot about you, and it's going to make people want to help you even more.
Yeah, it's little things like that go a long way. You don't have to write handwritten thank you notes to everyone. You don't have to you don't have to try so hard. But
Yep.
like little things, like you said, following up with the person who connected you and saying, "Hey, I had a great meeting with X, Y, and Z. We're going to speak again in a few weeks." Just keep us posted. Don't make me have to chase you for updates.
I mean, another really tangible thing you can do, and someone, Michelle Diffenderfer on the last panel, had this great idea of, hey, if you get connected to someone that you think is a big deal in this space, you can also offer to volunteer your time for them in a way that allows them to see what kind of skills you have. And in a way that isn't, do you have a job for me, or do you know someone that has a job for me? And if that is your intention, down the road, that volunteer work could end up being the thing that gets your foot in the door. It may not happen tomorrow, but it could happen.
Yeah. So pivoting to things that advice that you might give to somebody again out of either undergrad or law school or graduate school. Doesn't have to be for environmental attorney jobs, but what are some maybe advice or tips that you would give for someone who's initially trying to break into this space, who has hardly any experience?
No experience in this space. Again, I go back to join groups that have people that are doing this. Volunteer in those groups, do great work, show up, be someone that people want to hang out with. Um, write, write in this space. What else? I'd say be open, right? Like if you're getting ready to pivot and you think you have an idea of exactly how and where you want to pivot, be a little bit more open. Is there, a midterm space that gets you skills that'll make you better fit for your ideal position, as opposed to I have to get my ideal position now? Um,
I love that advice because, again, people get so wedded to what their dream job looks like. And this is not to say that people shouldn't pursue that dream job, but it might be that you just don't have the experience. And employers, they do a lot of things well, some things not so great, but employers really don't like training people. They
yep,
want, and not that they need someone that's super polished, but there are not that many employers out there that are willing to take entry level people. Even law firms, when they do go through their hiring process, they're usually hiring summer associates that
yep.
they have already, in essence, like trained and vetted from a summer program. So be a little creative. I brought this up in our panel a few weeks ago, Marissa, is that all right, if you have an idea that you want to do environmental and you can't get into an environmental place, whether it's a law firm or otherwise, maybe environmental adjacent. And you
Yep.
mentioned land use. I have land use and zoning experience, but that's something, urban planning. It could be
Real estate.
environment. It could be consulting. It could be environmental consulting, where maybe it's not exactly the thing that you want to do, but you're going to be getting some technical skills. And consulting firms are some of the employers that are actually willing to take entry level people because they need field. They just need young field staff. They need to send people out into the field.
Two of the best environmental lawyers I know, one my best hire ever, and one of my favorite people in SEER, started off as consultants. And that was huge for them in terms of starting their career. And it dictated that both of them were a lot further ahead than, new associates that had just started practicing and didn't have that consulting experience.
Yeah, the three of your favorite lawyers, because that's how I
Oh,
started
you
my
do?
that's how I
Oh,
started
love it. Love it.
for turning to people who perhaps have some experience in the space. Again, it doesn't have to be legal, but they've been doing work already. They're maybe like a 10-year career person, and they want to pivot into environmental sustainability, energy. What's some advice that maybe you would give them?
You just need to think about how to market the skills you already have, right? Like your core skills as a lawyer. If you're a really good lawyer in whatever space, right? Then, you've got to play up what that means for whatever environmental position you want to do, right? And then I go back to the same thing like a broken record. Get yourself into the spaces where the people that are in this practice area are, and just start meeting people, and be sure that you're talking to these people about yourself in a way that makes it clear to them that, hey, this is going to translate, right? I was on a panel a couple years ago with a leader at Earth Justice, and
Hmm.
her background was she was a civil rights lawyer and she had no environmental experience whatsoever. And they were like, you're a litigator, right? You're a litigator that does work in an adjacent space. Come on down. So don't be so sure that people aren't already going to believe that your skills might translate.
Yeah, I met someone a few years ago, and she and I have become friends over the years. But she approached me because she wanted to break into the space, and she was a civil litigator,
Yep.
a tort litigator, and but not no environmental kind of substantive experience.
Yep.
And in short order, I kind of gave her a playbook, which was, I hate to say this because it sounds like I'm pandering to you, but it was like, hey, I'm involved in the New York State Bar Association. Come, just show up, and I'll introduce you to some people. She eventually turned me into her mentor. She didn't call me her mentor, but I kind of figured it out. Yeah, I caught a vibe, and but I was happy to introduce her to some of the environmental attorneys in the New York State section. And over time, we co-authored an article. So it goes back to what you said. Then she started kind of gaining some momentum. There was a speaking engagement that I was invited to speak on, and I had a conflict, kind of a scheduling conflict. And I said, hey, I have somebody who um, is a litigator, so she's a respected attorney in her own right. I think she can handle this. Would you be okay with her having being my substitute?
Yep.
The the person who was coordinating the speaking engagement was just happy to have a substitute. Next thing you know, this person is speaking as an expert on environmental issues just a few months into kind of her interest in this. Fast forward to a few months ago, she now works for a big think tank as an environmental, a big environmental think tank. So that was kind of her entry, and it took about a year, But so you have to be patient, but you have to do the things that you said, which is show up to the spaces,
Yep.
and then you have to do stuff. Like you have to write, you have to speak, you have to outreach, you have to speak with people with some intentionality. People need to know what you're about.
Yep. That's exactly right. Show up, be great, and it'll happen.
Yeah, it's difficult. I know that some people claim, not claim, but some people are more introverted, and I get it. It comes naturally to me. I can be in a room and I can strike up a conversation with just about anyone, and I'll make it interesting, whether they don't think themselves as interesting. I'll make the conversation interesting. So I understand that it's not always easy, especially if you have social anxiety. I know that's a real thing for people, but you also have to think that if you want to enter the space and either you don't have the experience or you don't know people, you have to do something about it. It's not going to happen by you liking things on LinkedIn and
Yep.
by and commenting on, like, you have to be out in the wild.
It's so true. It's so true. And like I'm one of those people, I'm a introverted extrovert. So it can be hard for me, like one touch, going to a reception. And so that's why I found associations where you can go a lot of times and you can meet people and you can get comfortable with people. Like another short-term strategy is just bring a gregarious friend, right? And
Mhm.
they can help you get conversations started and go from there.
So I didn't ask you at the beginning of this because we got into your background and your kind of where you grew up and all that stuff. But give us a short rundown of kind of what is Bloom Energy, what do you guys do, and then what do you do for Bloom Energy?
Yeah, so Bloom Energy at its core is power generation, right? So our technology is solid oxide fuel cells. We make power via a non-combustion electrochemical reaction. And that dictates that our solution on natural gas is 99% better than combustion sources where criteria pollutants are concerned, and somewhere between like 25 and 50% better on CO2. But the platform is fuel agnostic. So when they are commercially viable, our platform can run on hydrogen, it can run on renewable fuels. We have a really, really pure stream of CO2. So we can do carbon capture. And the reverse of our technology is an electrolyzer. So the same boxes, we can build them differently, and we can take electricity and convert it to hydrogen when the hydrogen market becomes available. So I like to say that Bloom is sort of a microcosm of the energy transition. We've got a suite of near zero to zero emission products. And particularly in the current landscape where, we're running out of power, we are an on-site solution that has the ability to serve some of these really big commercial and industrial AI uses that are struggling to find solutions in the near term.
Are you, how long have you been with the company?
I've been with the company for 5 years. My title is Vice President, Environment and Regulatory Law. What that means is I'm our environmental and land use lawyer, but I also manage the team of compliance professionals that handle day-to-day environmental health and safety compliance, both at all of our installations, because we operate and maintain the boxes that we sell at our customer facilities.
Okay.
And then also at our manufacturing facilities. We have really large manufacturing facilities in California and in Delaware. But I think my most important work, the highest value work that I do for the company is really sort of at the intersection of law, regulation, and policy, and trying to open up markets, whether that be by getting interpretations of regulations that were written before our technology existed and not necessarily for us, or getting us incentives based on those environmental benefits that we just talked about, thinking about new ways to market ourselves to people based on a whole suite of things in my area. So it's really about a lot of the highest value work is about how can we sell to more customers, how can we provide a benefit versus other technologies, et cetera.
When you were in law school, and I know that you wanted to be a criminal attorney, but did you ever envision that you would be in this space?
No, I didn't at all. And also, when you go back to educational background, I told you I did poli-sci and history because that's what I loved, and that's what got me going from a personal perspective. I would say that throughout my education, I thought I was math and science averse. And obviously, in order to be a good environmental and really land use attorney, you have to do a lot of math and science, right? And so what I learned was that, number one, I liked it much more in the practical, right? And number two, a superpower in this profession is being able to take dense, esoteric information and distill it for the common man. And I think maybe if you aren't so technical, I'm not saying there aren't great technical people that are environmental lawyers, there are. But sometimes when you're not so technical, it allows you to do that better, I think. And so at the end of the day, I'm not as math and science averse as I thought I was.
It's called you're growing up.
Yeah.
You're in this space now. You've been in this space now for 5 years. What do you think is, if you could sum up maybe the one of the biggest challenges that you face, in your role, either regulatory or enforcement or dealing with shareholders or different stakeholders? So what's one of the biggest challenges that you encounter?
I think the biggest challenge in this space for me and the work that I've done, and remember, the core of my expertise is large scale industrial infrastructure permitting work and complex air quality, both mobile and stationary source. The biggest big picture challenge in those worlds is perfect being the enemy of the very good. I would say I came from BNSF Railway, large yards, locomotives, perceived as old and dirty, even though it's not. Rail is the most sustainable way to move freight. To bloom energy, new technology. I just told you those environmental benefits, even running on natural gas, the most efficient way to use natural gas. 99% criteria pollutant reductions versus combustion sources. I thought it was going to be so easy. And then come here and there's still all of this anti-gas sentiment. And you're like, you want to show them the graph of how much of the world is still burning wood to get their energy, right? And hey, what if we could move all of this oil and coal to gas? That would be a benefit for the world, right? But again, this whole idea of perfect being the enemy of the very good is something that I think in this space we have to deal with and work around every day.
Yeah, and I think that's probably something, to be quite frank, that probably translates into different areas, because I think in a lot of places you can get paralysis by analysis, where you're trying to do everything perfectly, and sometimes you don't need to do perfectly to move the needle. You just need to do something and do it good enough. You mentioned something earlier about the importance of Black and Brown people and Black and Brown kids to get into this space. Have you noticed a trend of maybe the profession getting a little more diverse in the last few years?
So, in all of the spaces where I operate regularly, I've seen environmental lawyers being really, really intentional about diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. Um, and I've also seen that that is held true in recent times. And I believe for whatever reason, maybe it's because it's really just like core to this work, that every kind of environmental lawyer understands why diversity is important to the profession and to getting the outcomes that anybody on any side of the issue would want to get to. And so it's been my experience that even though this historically hasn't been the most diverse practice area, most folks that practice in this area understand how important it is and have been really focused on diversifying the practice.
I love that, because I've had a similar experience, and I will regrettably admit that there are still way too many times, maybe you've had this experience too, where still today, you're the only person of color in a room of 20 people, let's say. But on the flip side, look at us. We're part of this space as well. And Jonathan Nobarocha, the president of ABA SEER, is a
The chair this year, and I will be the chair in 2 years.
It's
So
amazing.
we're having our Barack and Kamala moment, and
it's happening. It's taking a while, but I love the fact that the profession is getting more diverse. Marissa, I know you have to go in a few minutes. If you just want to give, kind of final words of advice to anyone out there that might be looking to either break into this space or pivot into the space.
I mean, I think I would just sum up sort of a lot of what I've already said, which is if you do a little work to sign up for and get yourself into the spaces where the people that practice in this area are, it's really easy to make connections. And it's really easy to get yourself on a path to being where you want to be. It may not happen with that first touch. It may not happen with that second touch. It might take a year. It might take co-writing something. It might take volunteering to do something for free. But if you want to get there and you do just a little bit of work, it's right there for you.
I couldn't agree more, and I couldn't have said that better myself. One last question before I let you go. Baseball season is about to start soon. Are you a baseball fan?
Baseball is like the only thing that I don't follow. I am the ultimate sports fan. Everyone will tell you that, but baseball is not my thing.
Fair enough. If you had to choose, I'm still gonna hold your feet to the fire. You had to choose one team: the Oakland A's, Anaheim, LA Dodgers, or the Padres. Who do you got this year?
I'd go with the Dodgers because that's an easy choice, right? They're winners.
I'm gonna edit that out of this episode. I'm a Yankees fan, so I'm gonna edit that and I'm gonna put like a voiceover that says that you actually want to root for the Yankees. Marissa, really appreciate you taking your time on a Friday to speak with us. I think you're one of the gems in this space, and I'm really happy that we got a chance to meet through this here bridge program. And I'm hoping to continue this discussion with you offline as we continue.
Thank you so much for having me. And anyone that's listening, please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. My name's up there. My email address is marissa.blackshire@bloomenergy.com. I would love to talk to any of you that have follow-up questions.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Marissa. I hope you have yourself a great weekend and the house setting up goes well.
You too, and I hope your kid feels better.
Thank you. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the Green Collar Careers Podcast. A huge thank you to our guests for sharing their time and insights with us. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe. It really helps more people discover the podcast. You can also support the show by leaving a review or sharing this episode with someone who might find it helpful. And if there's a topic or guest you'd love to hear from, please let me know. DM me, reach out, shoot me an email. Thanks again for being part of this community, and I'll see you again next time.